Well, hello. Today we're doing glazing using oils on a chiaroscuro portrait. So this is the lovely Felix, obviously I've done before, and I don't know why it's so successful, but it's got this nice glow because there's a lot of transparency in the paint here. So I'm going to try and reproduce that on here. So I've sketched out vaguely in pencil. It does look a bit like a girl with a beard. You probably can't see it, it's rather faint. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to slap on. So I've got burnt sienna here, which is this one. Burnt sienna, which is that lovely colour. It's very transparent, and unfortunately the paper's a bit absorbent. So what I'm going to do is pretty much put that nearly all over the place, and burnt umber for a bit of dark. And this is Ligwin. I'm going to probably use that because I need this to dry. It's going to be a 2-day process, in fact, because I need this painting to dry in between. So I'm just going to pretty much go over this with a big brush. The colours I want going on here, and I will be wiping away. Now this wiping away is very nice. It's very similar to the sort of wiping away with charcoal. So first I've got to put the paint on, and I've got to wipe it away, so bear with me for a moment. Ooh, that's the burnt umber, which is a nice dark one. I've also got here a bit of Payne's Grey, which I'll probably slap on for his hair. You can see that takes it down a bit. So I'm just going to be putting this on in a big way. And chiaroscuro means out of the shadows, I think. Something like that. Light and dark. Big Caravaggio obviously was a master at this, and he created, someone pointed out that he was never that successful in his lifetime. He had a few commissions. He never had a studio with students to do some of his work for him. I think he was probably a bit of a cantankerous bastard. But he created this absolute craze for chiaroscuro throughout Europe. And there's an exhibition at the moment at the National, I think, of Artemita Gentileschi, and she's the same generation as him. And all her paintings have got this drama of the light. And when I was in Rome, I learned a fascinating thing about, they had a rather odd little exhibit about Caravaggio, who is that, about how he achieved these effects, and they actually had a demonstration. Well, one thing he did, he cut a hole in his roof, and apparently his landlady wasn't that thrilled about that. And the other thing is he kind of set up lights with mirrors as well to get this very strong light. So come down from the roof and bounce off a mirror and bounce onto his subjects. So I'm just going in here and putting some darks on. And I'm still using Ligwin. I've got a little bit of solvent up my sleeves as well, which would traditionally be turpentine. But I am using Bob Ross. Bob Ross, let me grab it. I highly, oh sorry, I'm taking the paintbrush out now. I highly recommend Bob Ross. You can see his mineral spirits odorless thinners. It's very good, very cheap, completely odorless, probably a little bit poisonous, but much better than turpentine. That seems alright. And it's half the price. I used to recommend Gamsol, which is a Foster American made, again really good but really expensive, and Bob Ross is half the price. They sell it at Lawrence's, so there's you can get it locally or on the internets. So what I'm doing, I'm just pretty much covering the whole thing with this colour. I like the burnt sienna because it's got this lovely glow to it. See, when you paint with turps you get drips, which is their thing. And the traditional way of painting with oils would be with turps. Because it dries, it will dry in about half an hour, which oil paints obviously don't do that. So if you just use turps, you get this drying. So I'm just going in here. I think I might want to pink up his ear a bit. You can move the paint around at this stage. And the reason why this painting of Felix I like so much is that I had odd lighting. So as you can see, the lighting is coming up from here. And in fact, I'm using the very same light to light the studio. It being December, lateral light just ain't going to cut it. So I'm just going over here, and I'm hoping, even though this paper is a little bit absorbent, that I'll be able to wipe away some things. So I think I want to perhaps darken his hair. So I've got this is my Payne's Grey mixed in with the brown. Gives this kind of cooler tone, so I want to get the shape of his head. So I'm just using this big soft brush and some liquid, which I think I might run out of soon, to put his hair in. So what you want to do with the chiaroscuro is you want to establish the darks, and that is obviously not dark enough. Now I've got too much liquid on the canvas, but never mind. This is just the underpainting. But, and this is one of the basic oil painting lessons I would teach, would be, I might use a bit of thinners instead, to do this black and white first. So you do a black and white painting first, like we did with our bottles and jugs, and then add the colour glazes. So you can do a similar thing with portrait. And it's a very nice, satisfying way to paint. It's really old mastery, because in those days they didn't have, the colour was really expensive. I think what I might have to do here is give some beard, is give it a bit of a wipe down. There's not too much stuff going on there. So I've just got some rags here, just tear up old t-shirts or something. Trying not to use too many baby wipes in my life, and I'm just going to wipe away some areas because I want to get some of that paint off. Some of the brush strokes. And actually I might go a little bit crazy here. Give it a good old wipe all over. Ooh, you got some nice transparency coming through there. So I think I've got a little bit too much going on. So I'm now going to apply some more burnt sienna. I think I'm just going to use it as is, although I'm a bit worried it won't be dry. So this is the burnt sienna, and I want to look where the lights and the darks are. So if I kind of demonstrate on the forehead, perhaps you'll be able to see. Maybe a bit more burnt sienna around here. So I'm just going to go over the whole thing and have a bit of a wipe. Sorry, got a paintbrush in my mouth. A wipe. Just more or less still see my pencil drawing, which is good. Ooh, it's disappeared into a mist. Sorry about the banging. If I put that there. There we go. I'm just going to stop banging. But now it's wobbly. Okay, so I just want to go in here, put these layers on. No, I don't know which is worse, the banging or the wobbling. And then I think I want a bit more burnt sienna over here. So he has completely disappeared. Why I didn't start like this, I don't know. Right, okay. So that sort of works. I'm using Ligwin because I want this painting to be dry sometime soon. So I'm just going in here. I'm just using terps. I'm taking some of the paint off. That will be his forehead. And then a bit more terps, well, the Bob Ross. I want this to come off. So this is quite similar to the wiping away in charcoal. And I often get people to start oil painting like that. Doing the charcoal exercise, just so that you get the idea of refinding the light within your painting. So we've got a nose over here, eek, and you see with terps you do get this dripping to some extent. I do want to find that light. And right over here, oops, lots of dripping. Remember this is your underpainting. Oh dear. Yeah. So this is the cheekbones. To go up higher. And I'm just going to wipe that away a bit. I'm going to have to re-establish that because that's not supposed to be there. And then put his nose. And there's a light just here. And you could do this with black and white oil painting, which I often get people to do, and then build up on that like I did with my previous one. I didn't want to do this in acrylics because you wouldn't get the same gorgeous chiaroscuro going on with acrylics because they're very flat and plasticky. Got a nose, and then we've got a mouth. So I'm just trying to catch the white areas here, and I will be applying paint. I want to find the lights where they are. So we've got the mouth. So his ear, I can just get it underneath. So I want that lightness around his neck, and then his lips. Not quite so much. His lit Adam's apple. There. And then to his Adam's apple. So this is Terps actually taking the paint I have applied off. A bit of a chest going on down there. Right, well that looks very peculiar, so I better slap some more darks on, I think, to establish. I want to establish a reasonably accurate, almost monochrome painting before I start adding coloured glazes. Let's have another brush. So a nice big brush, my long flats that I like. So I think I need to re-establish this. And here as well. What I need to do to really establish his hairline, in fact. Yes, let's go and establish his hairline. So I've got Payne's Grey, which I can mix with Burnt Umber. I really want to establish stuff going on here. And I may point out this portrait did take 3 weeks to do, 6 hours, so this is going to be a bit more slapdash, but I want you to demonstrate how you use glazes in a portrait. A rather high forehead. And so that's his hair, so I'm going to need more paint. You see the paint, I'm pretty much using pure paint here, although I think I better mix some liquid in it and they hope it will dry. Liquid's got this nice property that it dries in 24 hours. The highlights when I come to be doing the hair, but I need to establish where things are, I think. Pretty dark. And then his ear is sort of here, and then his ear is coming down here. And I have given him a very high forehead. And then he's got his parting there. And then I think I better get some beard on because that does actually define his chin. And there's something weird happening over there. Hang on, I need some more Payne's Grey. Okay. And it's a nice way to paint this because it helps you abstract the human form in various ways, because I do it in light painting too. So you're just drawing the light, and that's the value of the wiping away charcoal exercise. So here we have beard. Maybe a little bit of liquid. And I don't know if it's the Winsor & Newton Alkylid Medium is liquid, which works very well. And there's his moustache. There's his lips gone. I suppose they're there somewhere. That's the rest of his beard. Coming down here, bit of burnt umber. And of course the thinner you put on the paint, the quicker it will dry. And as I say, if you use a little bit of dirt, which I'm just going to experiment with now. There we go. Right, and now I'm going to start thinking about some detail. And we've got an eyebrow. And another eyebrow. He's got his lovely eyelashes. So as I say, I'm just trying to, oops, establish my dark areas. And what I really want to do is establish this area as being dark. So I'm going to pretty much use, I think, burnt umber, because the dark defines the light here. So I may have to re-establish his eyelashes, but making sure I'm getting his nose doing something. Oops. Eek. Rather peculiar shaped nose, but hopefully I can correct that. And again, so here I really want this to be dark, and I think this glaze here is a couple of weeks worth of glazes of burnt umber and Payne's grey. But I do want this area to be dark there. It's turning into his beard. Okay, I might work on that separately so you don't have to be bored to death. But I will work on some details on the face. So I think I'm going to need a smaller brush now. And look at some details in his face. Hang on a minute, let's get a better, smaller brush. Is that going to work? That could work. Okay, so I've got these. I got these off the internet. They're kind of round. They're sort of like a filbert. They're very soft, which can or can not work for you. That's a bit stiff. This one. He's had better days, so I just want to go in here and start establishing what his eyeballs are up to, and where the light is. So I'm just thinking monochrome, but my monochrome consisting of these colours. No, I don't like my brush. Let's put it in to be cleaned. Let's have that one. So this is a slightly smaller flat brush. So I'm picking up pretty much pure burnt sienna. Just going here. And adding some darks. And because he's lit from below, it's actually really lighting his cheekbone. I think I need some more darks in there, maybe. Too much liquid. To establish his eyeballs. He was also really like Jesus. He looks. Just want to get that area a little bit darker. You see, I'm actually using the transparency of the paper to be the light at this stage of the canvas. This is oil painting paper. Doing something very odd with his nose. I think his eyes are too low. So I'm just going to wipe that off. I think I need to wipe this off. So this is where you can use a rag to actually create the effect you want, says she. So I'm going to try and build up his eye almost in an anatomical way. Call that. I think his eye is a bit further higher up there. Like that. And then we've got all sorts of interesting things happening to his nose just here. So it's kind of lighting the bottom of his nostrils. And I do want this to be darker, so I've mixed some Payne's grey into this. Just to give that extra bit of darkness. You can almost see his eye socket there. So when painting eyes, it's a very good idea to think about the anatomy behind it. And I might do a lesson where you draw the skull and then you draw the person on top. There we go, and then something happening here, and then this nose is really quite dark. Not so much. And okay, let's try and establish what's happening with his cheek here. So I'm just adding Payne's grey. Oops, it's spraying into his beard, which I don't want to do. I'm just going to soften this with a bit of rag. Oops. Ugh. Creating interesting things going on there. So use your rag as a tool. I don't think I made his nose look enough, but hopefully I can correct that. And then we've got this bit here, so this is his cheek, which is a kind of warmer colour. No, his nose is definitely not big enough. Okay, so a little bit of Turps required, I think. That will work. So I just need to go in here and wipe that away. That's better. But then it needs to be like that. So it's quite a nice process of building it up like that. So I'm just going to have a little stumble over here. Ooh. And get a nice smaller brush to try and establish his lips. And again, you can see that he's lit from the bottom. I need to get his nose better. Okay, so down there, and give him a nostril so I can sort of orientate myself. And it's a nice way of building up a painting. So if I made his nose bigger, I'm going to have to bring down his moustache. And again, that needs to be darker there, possibly here. And then, I think, just come away, just come away too. Okay, and I think I need to soften that. So you're getting this nice light and dark thing happening, which you can then build on. So it's at this point you're really trying to establish your tonal values, and you want to be able to use those tonal values when you start adding the glazes. So you want those tones to be right. Let's get his nostril making sense. So nose, 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 nose. So we got, oops, too much liquid. Yeah, yeah, and nostril. It's looking a bit better, but not entirely like his nose. And then let's get the moustache working. Moustache, moustache, okay. And it comes down here. And that goes around there. And let's see if we can establish his lips. So they're sort of here. There's his bottom lip. It's darker. Get basics in the right place and their tonal values too. And let's have, this is really quite light here. So, oops, too much paint on there, it's not sticking. Whoa, looks like he's got lipstick on, so I'm just going to use my rag to wipe away this area here. That's very strange. Let's see if we can improve that a bit. And then a little bit of burnt sienna just here to indicate flesh tones. And then we'll go back into our beard. There we go. Let's just soften those brush strokes. Get rid of that liquid. it, sort of. So I'm actually moving further away, so I'm very far away now, and I'm really using my brush almost at the end, so I can really see what I'm doing. This is the advantage of if you are painting, to use an easel, so you can actually get away from what you're doing. There we go, and I won't use white. I say that, but I might change my mind. I won't use white at this stage of the painting. I say that, but I may change my mind. So what I can do is actually, I want this to be lighter, so I've just got some terps on my brush. I want that bottom lip to be that little bit lighter. Just here. And probably just here. Okay. Look. That's very strange. But hopefully I can rectify that when I start adding the glazes. So I just want this. And then that's sort of like that. Yeah. And I just want to dab that away. When you get this kind of ambiguity going on in your painting, it's often quite a good thing as well. So the viewer of your painting fills in all the details. I just want the beard to be sort of defined. And over here. And have an eyebrow. Sort of there. And let's see if we can define his hair a bit better. So we've got this dark here. And it kind of cascades down there. Find his ear somewhere, but at the moment I just need to get some dark paint on here. And maybe have some darkness going on there. So I do need to find this quite strong light here. Highlights his Adam's apple. So his ear is here, and you really need to define that a bit more. Ear. And then it kind of fades away. And then we have his shoulder. So let's use some burnt umber for that. Brush is big enough. Bigger brush. Bigger brush. And I think this needs to be quite simple. Oh, ear. Back to his ear. Sorry, I'm just seeing what needs to be done. So I'm not going to do that much more to it. I might actually give it a bit of a second coat here, because with oils you have to wait for them to dry. So this is going to be a 2 or 3 day painting, but each session is going to be quite short. But using liquid is very good to get paint to dry. It doesn't really look like Felix, but let's crack on. And then I want to think about what his eyes are doing, and then he's got something happening here, which I think I might have to define when we get round to doing the glazing on top. So I'm just going to establish a few more darks here, and then I'm going to leave it to add the coloured glazes next time I start painting. Let's get his beard in. A bit more of his hair up here. And it goes like that. So with hair, it's often a good idea to, oh dear, I made him look very cross. No, he wasn't that cross. So looking rather Jesus-like, and I'm not going to worry about the pattern of the beard. So this is what you call an underpainting. If I had more time I would be more sophisticated, but it's having to do it in this short amount of time. Let's see if I can just define the shadow here a little bit more. And here. Take that. See, it's not that cross. And it kind of shooshes around. I should have stopped while I was ahead. Back a little bit. Oh dear, now he looks really ill. Take that down. This is oil painting paper, which is perfectly fine. It is a bit absorbent, and I think his ears further this way. Take his ear further that way. So that way. And you get this nice scumbling, which gives you almost lost edges. Is his ear in the right place? No, not really. So I'm just going to take a little bit of turpentine. Sorry, I'm just checking for which is the right brush, because I want to get that back to being light. So that's a little bit of turpentine, and then wipe away some of the paint I put on there, not madly. And then a little bit more turpentine, I think. Just here. And just there. Oops. You see, I'm fiddling now. I should have stopped while I was ahead. Oh, back to the ear. Get that ear in the right place. So it's sort of here, here. And actually, if I paint it and then I can paint hair over it, because it's in the right place. And that ear lobe. And up here. And I think we just need, just tweaking now. I do want that to be a bit darker. And around here as well, so that's sort of doing that. And that. Now I need to soften these areas here. Which I will do with the rag. Oops, his ear. Give him an elfy ear. But I do want to have it there. So a tiny bit of turps to wipe away this area here. Let's try and get a little bit there. And then paint the hair on top. On top. And as I've got paint here, I might try and establish some darker hair. On the other hand, I don't want the paint to be too thick because then it won't dry in time. Okay. And ooh, I could put his little eyeball, his other eyeball in. That'll be good. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave it there. I know it looks like a terrible mess, but once you start adding the glazes, I think it will work quite well. Having said I'm going to leave it there, I think I want to add a little bit more burnt sienna up here. cheekbone. And so just having a bit of a fiddle. He's got rather a Charles I type look about him, because this has got rather pointy. So in fact it's not quite that pointy, so I just want to bring that out a bit. That's better, and hoping I can resolve all those problems when I come to add my darker areas. So we've got this nice big tendon. Ooh, I need something over there. That. And as I say, what I might do is darken this down once it's dry, and then I can add the colour glazes next time. So this is an underpainting I've already done in a very limited palette of burnt sienna, burnt umber and Payne's grey, and will fast forward through the underpainting process, but pretty much I just use those colours and Ligwin, which is my glazing medium. This is from Winsor & Newton. I highly recommend it because it's very versatile and helps oil paintings dry within 24 hours, and you can also use it for glazing. It's the best one I found. I found all the others dry a bit faster. Ligwin will stay active for about 2 or 3 hours. And then I also, as you will see in the fast forward video, I put on the paint and then pretty much wiped it all off. I scumbled it in, and then when I was actually trying to highlight these areas, I just used pure terps, or rather I just used the Bob Ross, and you'll see how that works. So today I've got quite a limited palette, so I was more or less sticking to the palette of Caravaggio. This is what you call a chiaroscuro portrait coming out of the shadows. That's what I was trying to emulate with Caravaggio. And you can see I'm painting from this nice picture of Felix I did ages ago, and you can see the light is actually very directional. It's actually coming from, it's very strong, and it's the light I'm using today in the studio. It's actually very strong, and it's coming from here. So you're getting this very strong directional light and a very limited palette, sort of creating the drama out of the light that you can see. So it's called chiaroscuro, which means out of the shadows, I think, in Italian. You'll have to not ask an Italian about that. And now I've got my underpainting done. So this is quite a thin layer of oil. It's all dry-ish. And I'm now going to put on glazes and add more opaque paint to them. So I'll just show you my palette. So here, I don't know if you can see that okay. Here I have, this is transparent gold ochre, which is quite nice. It's very transparent. Most ochres are very opaque. That's yellow ochre. This is permanent rose, which is a very zingy colour, but if you don't have that, alizarin crimson will do, just to give a bit of pinkness to him. This is burnt sienna, burnt umber, and Payne's grey, and I've got a little bit of blue, which I probably won't use. But this is a basic palette that Caravaggio would have had in his day. So what I'm going to do is actually apply, I'm just going to lower that a bit so you can see what I'm doing more. I'm going to apply quite a large area of glaze and start working in opaquely using this picture I did previously as my reference. So I want a biggish brush, and again I favour these long flats, and I'm going to pretty much put a glaze of burnt sienna on and add a few things to it. So I'll start demonstrating with the forehead, and you can see, so you don't have to worry about it too much because you're going to work into this with opaque colours. Oops, maybe I need some more. Burnt sienna is very transparent, so you don't need that much glazing with it. So I'm up here thinking about his forehead. So I'll start with that because it's quite a simple area. And the nice thing about oils is they do remain reactive, unlike acrylics, which dry really, really quickly. So I'm just going to take a little bit of Payne's grey, I think, and I want to have some darkness in here. And the nice thing about glaze is you get transparent layers on transparent layers. And if you look at most paintings before like 1850, you can see these layers of glaze that people put on create this lovely glow. Now, I think Annalise once told me that you could have 40 layers of glazing on a painting if you think about the portraits of Rayburn and Reynolds and even Rembrandt, I think. There's a lot of glazing goes in there, and the glazes, you can see here it's almost happening already, create this lovely depth. So I call out his forehead, and I might put a little tiny bit of the pinky stuff in. I'm going to use this permanent rose. This was it Rose Madder Permanent Rose, was very popular with the Victorians. So it's really, really pink, and it goes a very long ways, but I just want a little bit of pinkiness, so I'm mixing that with burnt sienna to come down here to make him seem slightly less like a boiled tomato. And up here. So now I've got my transparent layer of glazing on there. I'm going to go in with some more opaque colours with a slightly smaller brush, so I've got a slightly smaller long flat brush, and I'm going to mix up some lighter opaque flesh tones. So I'm going to take a little bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of burnt sienna, and see what happens, which is quite dark, tiny bit of the pinky stuff, ooh, and then some white, and see what I end up with. I don't know if that needs to be a bit pinker. This white seems very stiff, so this is again, so Ligwin, you can create a glaze with it, but you can also use it to make the paint flow better, because my white seems rather stiff. So I'm just going to go in here. Whoa, that's very pink. And over here, let's try and get rid of some of that pink. And over here, and you can see you're working into the paint that you've already put on there. And as soon as you start putting white or anything opaque into your colours, you lose that transparent glaze effect. So I'm just mixing out a lighter version of that because I want something over here and over here, so I can just put it in there. And I'm not going to worry about my brush strokes at the moment, because I'm going to show you the wonderfulness of fluffing in a minute. So over here, yeah, there's a lot of pink in that one. I think I put, so pink really goes a long way, and I don't know if people know, I really don't like pink. So I'm in here thinking about what's happening there. I'm painting on oil painting paper, which is not as nice as canvas, but it's perfectly serviceable. With oils you need to have a prepared surface. So I'm putting the white on first, I shouldn't have done that. To have a prepared surface, otherwise the oil in your paint will just disappear into the paper, and it just dries it up horribly, unless you want that out of your painting, of course. Realise that this is a bit too thin up here, so I'm just adding a bit more. So I've just picked up pure burnt sienna, and I'm just working into the paint I've already put on there. It's all part of learning how oil paints work, really. Because they remain active, you need to kind of pace a painting. So this is a bit of Payne's grey. I'm just going in there just to darken that down a bit. So I need to go on and add some more glazes before I start putting the white on. So here, because it's so strongly lit from over there, I need to put on some dark cool colour here, and there's something going on there. And I'm always using my trousers to clean my brush, so I'm just cleaning my brush, because what happens is that you pick up paint from the canvas once you start adding paint around, and then you have to clean your brush before you can apply any better paint. So you can be quite bold at this stage. Going in here, trying to do his nose. I think I've straightened his nose for him. So that's a darker colour, and I just want a little hint of Payne's grey in there and here. And Payne's grey as well is quite a transparent colour, so you don't need to use a lot to get the right effect. You don't need to use a lot of glaze with it to get the effect, to create a glaze. And and a bit up there. I'll worry about his beard later. Okay, so I need a bit more glaze. It's quite useful also to have a light and dark brush. So if I call this my dark brush, my other brush will be my brush where I have a bit of white on it. So once you've got white in oil paints, it's really, really hard to get rid of it. So I want to go up here and get rid of some of that grizzly pink. I'm just adding some more burnt sienna. And then I suppose, so with beards and things like that, tattoos, whatever, draw the thing first and then worry about the beard later. So I'm trying to give him something resembling a rosy cheek over here. Ooh, well, maybe a bit of transparent gold ochre, that might do it. It's a nice colour, this transparent gold ochre, because ochres tend to be opaque. And this is transparent, so that's quite a nice thing to have in your kit. So now it's a bit too brown, but never mind. Okay, oops, again clean my brush on my trousers, and I'm just going in here. Eek, I think I need a bit more pinky stuff going on there, and I'm going to be brave and add a little bit of pink to my glaze to give him a rosy cheek. Ooh, that might be too rosy, but let's crack on. So I'm mixing up a burnt sienna and the transparent gold ochre, and I'm just going to go in here. So you can be really quite bold at this stage, which is always a good thing. I'll worry about his beard in a minute, but I want to have that glaze on so I can work into it with these opaque colours. Oops. So I just want a little bit of stuff happening here, and then up here I suppose. I suppose I could do his ear at the same time, so again burnt sienna and the gold ochre and tiny weeny bit of the pink. I'll put something here as well so I can do that area at the same time. And you can see I'm just kind of slapping it on. It's quite eye-opening for me. One of my students, I was doing this exercise with them, and they just went over the whole thing with burnt sienna, and then started working in the lighter colours. So here I have my lighter flesh tone, which is opaque. It's got white and yellow ochre in it, and I can actually add that, and you can see it's blending in with the colour I put there. Maybe a little bit lighter. So when you're painting portraits or life, quite useful to have a flesh tone and various tones of that flesh tone. And you can see it's actually messing around with the colour I've already put there. I'm getting distracted by wanting to paint a good picture. Right, so we've got the cheekbone here, and that's kind of softening the edge. This is the nice thing about oils, that you can really soften edges. And I suppose I learnt this technique early on from lovely Darvish, in fact, and he was trained classically in America. You can go to Florence and get trained like the old masters. You've probably seen people on Portrait Artists of the Year who trained in Florence, and they're always very sniffy about them. I don't know why, but they paint in the classical old master style, which I think is pretty good, but they're always, it's not a traditional English thing anymore to do that. So I'm just mixing up variations of flesh tones and coming in here, and you can see it's mixing with the colour I put there already, so I can kind of dab around there and hopefully refine it in a minute. What I need is another medium brush. Where's my other medium brush? Here we are. So that's not too big, so I want to have a little bit more refinement going on there. And so that's very lit. So I need to go back to my light brush. So I have a brush for darks and a brush for lights. So we've got quite an interesting shadow here, and you can see, so I can get this really soft edge because the paint is reacting to the paint already on the canvas. And actually that is very white, just there, and over here, It's not the same as having the person in the room with you. I would not normally paint from one of my own paintings, but I can't afford to pay Felix as a model, and I know I've done it once already, so hopefully I can do it again. So I'm going over here with white. So I'm picking up pure white, which is quite stiff and claggy, which is a good thing. I want a bit of pure white just there, and a bit going on here, and a bit here, and a bit there. Oh, and his nose. Okay, so back to my darker brush. I want to have some glaze here so I can work into it, as it were. And a little bit of dark as well, so I need some dark, cooler colours. Maybe just there, just here, and here. And let's give him a nostril, why not? The reason why you paint dark to light with oils, it's the other way around with watercolours, is that once you've got white on your canvas, you can never re-find that dark again. Let's go and paint a bit of an ear, why not? Here we go. You can see, so it really does make life so much easier. It's such a lovely way of painting this. So I'm just going to soften that a bit. I need to cool it down with a bit of burnt umber. Yes, that's the thing. Burnt umber and white. That's me this cooler version. And then up here, whoa, see, and there's no white left on there, so I'm just going to grab a little bit more and start sculpting his nose. And I'm going to mix that in. And then this needs to be done something with. Not entirely sure what, but let's give it a go. And okay, so I need to have that not quite so dark. Coming up here, and I think I need something going on here. You can see I'm just putting my brush strokes any which way, because what I'm going to do is show you some fluffing, which is lots of fun. But don't get too addicted to it. But this is the way to soften edges, so I'm just going in there and get the area between underneath his eye, and that is really well lit. Start really looking and seeing the planes of the face. So I just need to do that, pick up some white. I just want to catch that, because this is a round object, it's an eyeball, so it's going to catch the light more in some planes than others. That's a bit fierce. I just want to go in here and soften that a bit. And then so I'm coming down here, so again I want to pick up a light version of a skin tone, so there's my skin tone. I'm mixing some more white with it, so I just want to come down here and put that in, and put this in, and put that in, and then I want to do something with his nose. So this is the very light area of his nose. And then back to a darker brush. I don't know if that would do it. Might do. I just want to have a little bit of something going on there, and I want to soften that edge, and I can just do that by adding active paint to the white, so the edge will soften. And I think that's a bit, whoops, picked up too much liquid. That's a bit better. And then I want to soften this edge too, so I can just pick up the darker paint and squish it into the white I've already got there. And then what's happening there? Whoa, I need to soften that, I think. Give it a very delicate little nose. Oh, and lips while I'm here with my burnt sienna. mixed with white. I'm just going to go in and try and tackle his lips, which are being lit from below, so that will be the lightest area there. And it's such a nice way of painting this because you're almost sculpting the form rather than worrying about outlines and things, because the paint kind of moves around with you. Oops, I've just mixed up a rather odd colour. So here again I've got quite a dark flesh tone. I'm going to add some white to that and think about doing something here. Don't like his nose at all. Have that soften there. Let's pick up a bit more burnt sienna there just to soften that edge as well. In fact. Right, so that's kind of, so I got quite a crude brush strokes there, but it'll all be going away in a minute. Now I want to add a bit more white here, so I'm just picking up pure white, and I'm quite grateful it's rather thick and stiff. And I want some pure white just here because the edge of the corner of the bottom of his lip is really well lit from the light below. And then okay, so here I am. So we got that kind of, so that's actually whizzed on quite well. So I'm going to take quite a light version of the flesh tone and try and sculpt his upper lip here to show that it's catching the light. And obviously here what I've done is this is actually not quite as dark as I'd like it, so here I actually did make it darker at one point, and I just want to go in here, that's too light, to catch his other eyelid and some eyelashes. He's got very nice eyelashes, Felix. I'm hoping I can correct that later. Let's give him some eyebrow here as well. Oh, that's terrible. Never mind. Right. So I think I'm quite happy with that, ish, vaguely. Just want something going on here. This painting here actually took me, I think, 3 weeks of 3-hour sessions, so it's 9 hours. So it's going to be a long process, and I've only done this in half an hour, so it's going to be a bit more slapdash. Yeah, and I want to soften that edge just here with the wrong colour. So a bit more burnt sienna, a bit more white. I want to get that idea of eyelids. Ooh, and it's gone rather flat over there, so I just need to put that brush aside because it's got a bit mucky, and pick up my dark one here, and I want to go in that colour, see if that's going to work. Not really. Let's try this colour, which is burnt sienna, a bit of Payne's grey. Do that, and then I want to have something over here, and that's a bit harsh down here, so I'm just going to soften that so I can move the paint around, which is nice. Now I'm going to worry about his beard and his hair. Ooh, and his neck. I think I'll do the neck separately. So I'm just going to maybe try and finish off some ear bit, and hopefully most of it will be hidden by his hair. And I do want, I suppose, something between his beard and his ear. So again, I'm mixing up a flesh tone of burnt sienna and transparent gold ochre. Ooh, that's a bit elastoplast coloured, but I'm just putting a bit of Ligwin in there to smooth it down a bit. Maybe put that in there. Maybe I should do his neck at the same time. I think I need some lighter areas just here where the light is coming from below, and here, and there. Eek. Okay. Let's let's see if we can do something about his nose. So I'm just going to go in here and add some light there, and a bit of light just there, and something's happening there. So picking up more or less pure white to find his nostril. I think I want to bring that down a bit. There we are. Jesus, as we live and breathe. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to leave the eyes till later, is I'm going to do some fluffing. So this is where you can get rid of your brush strokes. It's a really nice technique, and again I learnt this from Darvish, who was classically trained. And what I have, those fan brushes are traditionally made for fluffing, but what I've got here is a brush that's gone a bit knackered. As you see, the bristles are splayed out a bit, and they work really well. So I'm just going to fluff around. I'm not going to go crazy, because I did spend a long time being addicted to fluffing. But you can see you can actually fluff out your brush strokes and really soften edges. Do look at your subject while you're doing it. Oops, kind of a devilish eyebrow I gave him. And I'm just going to fluff through this area, just soften those brush strokes. And I'm actually cleaning my brush in between because it will pick up some of the paint. And this is the secret of EL Masters, lots of fluffing. So you can see I can almost model his cheekbones by moving the paint around. And down here, look, and up here, and as I say, I'm leaving the beard till a little bit later. I think I want to fluff that, and definitely fluff this because I want these areas to be softer. Oops. Fluff, fluff, fluff. Fluff. And let's have a bit of fluffing there, and let's fluff this area. Might need to re-establish his eyebrows, but that shows you how your brush strokes can kind of disappear into the painting, and you can model the form just using paint, one hopes. Yeah. Okay, oh, I could do his ear as well, so we want to fluff that a little bit. Okay, look. So now, I suppose, I might do his neck first before I tackle his beard. Or will I? Yes, I'll do the neck first. So I'm just going to take, again, I'm going to make a sort of glaze of flesh tone, so that's burnt sienna, bit of liguin, and some of this transparent gold ochre or yellow ochre, and that is pretty much tomato soup coloured, so I'm going to add a tiny bit of pink. Ooh, that's a lot. A bit more burnt sienna, a bit more yellow ochre this time, I think. Yuck. Well, that's horrible, but let's see what it looks like when you add white. Pretty horrible. Okay, let's go back and get some more burnt sienna. And I'll probably do. And I'm just going to go over this area, apart from the fact it's got white in. Let's just take burnt sienna, and I just want that over here. A bit more burnt sienna, and a bit more transparent gold ochre, and over here. So I want that there. Nice transparency. Look, there we are. And then I want some darks in here because it's not just all that colour. So got a bit of Payne's grey and whatever's on my brush. So I'm just going in here. I want that darker area, maybe over there. Now I'm going to take my lighter flesh tone and start working it in. Okay, over here. Eek. And a little bit lighter. Over here. And again, so I can actually almost model the flesh by putting lighter area in, so the paint's reacting to itself, as it were. Eek. Yeah, that's not bad considering. Okay, so I want a lighter version of the flesh tone, so I'm just picking up white. I will mix that in with my standard flesh tone, and I want to catch his Adam's apple. It goes down here, turns into his chest. And again, I can almost model the tendon on his neck. And I'm not going to worry about the area there, but I would like a little bit of darkness under the ear. Oh, that's proving you cannot apply paints, dark paint on a where it's got white on it, so I'm going to have to pick up quite a lot of dark paint and pop it on just here. And again, and then I can soften that with my flesh tone. And then up here, over here, I think I want some more burnt sienna. And then here, I might just leave that how I had done it originally, because this is kind of unpainted down here. Let's get some dark going on. I kind of like it when paintings are unfinished. You can see the canvas beneath. So here I'm just putting on a glaze of burnt sienna. I think, and a little bit of burnt umber. Oops, maybe too much. But hopefully that will all fluff out. So I'm just putting on actually pure liquid now to get that nice transparent glow of glazes. And that looks like he's got a bag around his neck, so I'm taking my fluffing brush, which was here somewhere. Where did that go? Oh, there's my fluffing brush. Okay, let's have a bit of a fluff around here, so I'm just going to fluff here to soften that edge, fluff here to soften that edge, and over here, and over there, and over there. He really is looking really quite Jesus-like, but that's the thing about having a beard and long hair. I don't like that area at all, but let's not worry about it. Oh, I know, I can worry about it. I'm just going to wipe it away with some t-shirt. There we are, that's better already. Right, I'm just leaning back. This is the advantage of working at an easel, or, well, being on a rotating chair, that is, you can look. You can get far away and appraise your painting. So now I'm just going to give all my brushes a good old wipe, because I'm now going to tackle the hair and the beard. Figure out which one's which. So that's a light and that's a light. That's a fluffing and that's small. Okay, so I'm going to take a big brush, this big brush, and mix up a glaze of, and I'm not going to go mad because I know Payne's Grey is very transparent, but I'm just going to take a bit of Payne's Grey and put some on here. Have a bit of beard and a little bit more of a glaze. So Payne's Grey. I prefer Payne's Grey to black, because black can be very dead. There are all sorts of different kinds of black: Mars black, ivory black, lamp black, which is basically soot. Payne's Grey's got this nice transparency to it and a bluish tinge. There's also a lovely colour from Gamblin, who is a posh American make, and they really know their colours, and they produce this lovely colour called chromatic black, which is quite similar to Payne's Grey but a bit darker, but again has got this nice transparent quality to it and a bluish tinge, so it's pretty much is like Payne's Grey. Now I might go in here with a glaze of burnt umber as well. Whoa. Just to add a bit more life to his hair. And you can see I'm doing pretty well. I'm just colouring the area. And he's He's got this lovely curly hair. Oops. Oops. And a little bit more glaze to take the hair. Let's have a wiggle over here. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Right. So we're getting this almost chiaroscuro effect. Now Caravaggio, who as everybody knows was a cantankerous bastard, someone pointed out to me recently that he never really had a studio of his own in Rome, or wherever, because he was always on the run, because he'd always killed someone or something. He had commissions, but he never had any pupils, which is quite odd, being quite a successful artist in his day. But he did set up, and of course he died reasonably young, but he did set up this absolute craze for chiaroscuro painting in Europe just after he died. And Artemita Gentileschi was also of his generation, so this chiaroscuro is really, really strong light. And I went to Rome and saw an exhibit of how he did his stuff, and it turned out he banged a hole in his roof, which didn't really please his landlady a lot, and had this very directional light, and also had a series of mirrors that would bounce light from the roof onto something, so you get this really, really strong effect of mirrors. Now I put this glaze all over his hair, which is rather flat, so I'm mixing up variations on a theme. So I've got kind of yellow ochre and burnt umber and a little bit of white, and I just want to highlight a few little lights in his hair, and then follow one or two curls. Ooh, rather romantic. And then what do I want to do? Let's try burnt umber and a little bit of light. I'm just following one or two curls. And we've got some curls going, that's probably not right. Let's have a little bit more of the dark. So I've got a combination of yellow ochre, particularly in this portrait, and burnt umber and some light areas. And we want something going on here, something going on there, so a little bit of white, I think, in proceedings. So we want some of his curls catch the light. We've got this kind of effect here. Make him prematurely grey, and then it comes over here with a little bit more light. So 1, 2 little gleams of light catching the top of his head there. Right, and now the beard, which is a similar process. And as I say, you want to think about when someone has a beard, and I noticed that I kept complaining to Felix and Mark, you know, they wanted work, and I want portrait models, and and I really want to show them the face. When are you shaving off your beard? And Mark very obligingly did. Felix's comes and goes. So I'm just again putting on this glaze of Payne's Grey and burnt umber on his beard. Ugh, that's the same colour as the background. Oops, let's have a bit more Payne's Grey and a moustache, and this brush is a bit big for these proceedings. Eek. So I might switch to a slightly smaller one. Okay, so you want to kind of be the moustache. I'm coming in here. Damn, that's got white on it. Let's get some more Payne's Grey going on. And more burnt umber. So again here, catching what's happening over here. Eek. There we go. Yeah. A little bit of light going on there. So it's not all the same colour. And it is actually being lit from below a bit, so I've got some lighter variation. I've got a little bit of white on my brush, and I'm going in, trying to give his beard a bit of life. So Payne's Grey, burnt umber, and I'm just going up here to or putting the beard on after you put the flesh on. Because you want to understand what's happening underneath the beard. And it needs something going on here, I think. There are a few little bristles, and this is quite nice. So the reason why I like long flats is that you can use them sideways as well. So I can go in here, make his beard seem more beardy. Okay, let's have it soften that edge a bit and catch that light. So here, because his beard is more or less the same colour as the background, I do need some lighter variations just to catch a bit of light. Oops, here, not to that colour. Let's have that colour. So just catching that. And what I would do is actually make that area darker. Right, so now we've got the tricky problems of the eyes, which are always the hardest thing to do. So I want quite a small brush just to model the eyes, really. So I'm probably going to use those two and see how it goes. Yeah. Because the eyes are tricky. So I want a bit of dark. I just want to define. So this is burnt sienna. Burnt umber and Payne's grey, and I just want to define that a little bit more. Or not. And then he's got some eyelashes here. Catching what his eyelashes are up to is always good, and really looking at what eyes do. So yeah, that looks better. And then I just want a little bit of darkness there and here, I think. And I want to tidy that up a little bit, and then maybe have something here. Oh dear, it's all going to hell in a handbasket. So that's the trouble with doing portraits. If you get the eyes wrong, it's all going to hell in a handbasket. But what I'm going to do now is add the brownness of his eyes. And obviously they're slightly sideways, and I'm going to be looking at where the lights are in his eyes. So I just want a bit of white in there to make it seem less of just a flat colour. And then we want a little bit of Payne's grey for the iris. And just want to get in there. And then I'll worry about that in a minute. So I've done that. So I just need a little bit of the flesh tone, if I had any left, which I don't. So I want a light flesh tone. I just want to define that area there. Yeah, and here. And I really don't like that bit, but let's go in here. So I'm just trying to model some effects of his eyes. If you're worried about doing eyes and you're finding them difficult, just study them, really. Just look at what they do. And you've got eyes, so you can do your own. I just want to... I'm fiddling now. Yeah, it's all going to go wrong. Right. Maybe. Right, so now I want to do the whites of his eyes and the light in his eyes. So, in fact, generally the whites of the eyes aren't completely white, so I've got sort of a greyish colour here. And these nice small flats are very good for being quite accurate, amazingly enough. I want that in there. Ugh. And of course it took me about half a day to do these eyes when I did the portrait. A bit of burnt umber down here, I think. And probably some pure burnt umber just here. And then I'm going to pick up some absolutely pure white, if I could find any. Don't seem to have any left. Sorry, I'm just trying to find some pure white. I've got pure white there, and I want to put the gleam, and it's not actually within his iris, it's just here because the light was just out of his field of vision. So a bit of light there. I think I want a bit more light on the end of his nose. Maybe some there. And maybe a bit over here. And here. Trying to describe the eyes as round, so a round ball. You will pick up the light in various places. Now I'm just looking at that bit and don't like it. I just want to come up here and over here, and then maybe put his eyebrows back. Oops. And you see it's quite hard to get a dark colour to stick once you've got opaque colours on there. So I like to paint quickly for you all. I would spend longer titivating this, but I just want to show you to make this really nice and chiaroscuro-y. I'm going to put another glaze of Payne's Grey just here. Can you see? So that really brings out that little sliver of light. And in fact, I think that's a bit cold, so I'm going to put some burnt umber in there too. And you can see that really just brings it out in a big way. And a bit more up here as well. And ideally, you would have done this first. So I just want, got rid of his eyelash butter. So I don't want it up here because otherwise his hair is going to disappear. But here you can see, so putting that dark on immediately has made it pop out. So again, over here. And over here. Right. And then I just want to show you another little trick. It's very popular with the old masters, which has gone out of fashion a lot, particularly in England. Americans still love it. This softening of edges, because it does make things seem more like real life. You don't see things with hard edges, so I'm just doing a little bit of fluffing there. And I will get a small fluffy brush. Have I got a small fluffy brush? Yes. And I just want to fluff this area here, so it's not quite such a hard edge. It's not like there's no paint there, which doesn't help. Ooh. I just want to soften this so it's not quite so harsh. Okay, so that is, here we are, this is what I particularly wanted to do. That is chiaroscuro portrait painting with oils. And again, it's actually doing the old master technique of doing a monochrome painting and then adding opaque colours, adding glazes and opaque colours into those glazes. So, I will see you another